Have you ever felt like you're just drowning? You're swimming in this sea of digital noise. You're always busy, but you're never actually getting anything important done. Well, today, we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating idea. What if the solution isn't some new productivity app, but a 2,500-year-old blueprint for the human mind? We're going to see how some ancient Buddhist teachings can actually be a super practical system for our crazy modern work life. First things first, let's just set the stage. The modern work world, it just feels like a constant state of being overwhelmed, right? We're plugged in 24/7, trying to process this fire hose of information, and the end result, it's not brilliance, it's burnout. Does this sound familiar to you? You've got 100 tabs open on your computer, your inbox is a disaster zone, and you spend more time thinking about what you should do than, actually doing it. This is the chaos we're talking about. It's a state of analysis paralysis. But what if the answer wasn't about adding more, doing more, downloading more? What if it was about tapping into a timeless guide for just getting your head straight? The source material we're digging into today makes this incredible argument that these ancient stories aren't just stories. They're incredibly practical strategies for right now. So let's get into the good stuff. Let's look at some of these ancient cures for burnout. We're going to explore a few core principles from Buddhist parables that honestly work like powerful antidotes for all that chaos we were just talking about. Okay, get this. This simple phrase, remove the arrow first, it comes from a story called The Parable of the Poisoned Arrow, and it is such a powerful metaphor for our work lives. So the story goes like this. A man gets shot with a poisoned arrow, but he refuses to let anyone treat him until he knows who shot it, what their social status was, what the bow was made of, and, well, he dies before he gets any answers. It's a perfect illustration of how we get lost in the why. Who's to blame? What's the perfect strategy? Instead of just dealing with the urgent problem right in front of us. So the core lesson here is so simple, but so profound. Action over analysis. When you figure out what the most critical task is, your poisoned arrow, you just deal with that first. Everything else is a distraction, period. Now for another huge one, this time about resilience. This quote right here, it introduces a concept called the 2 arrows, and let me tell you, it is a game changer for how you handle pretty much any setback. Think about it like this. The first arrow is the actual thing that happens. A project fails, you get some tough feedback, you lose a client. And yeah, that hurts, it stings. But the second arrow, that's the one we shoot ourselves with. It's the story we tell ourselves. I'm a failure, or this always happens to me. And that second arrow, that one's optional. That's the suffering we can actually choose to avoid. Here's a great little riddle for you. This question comes from a story about a man who comes just to insult the Buddha. And the Buddha's incredibly calm response, well, it contains a really powerful lesson in emotional control. And here's what that means for us today. Think about a nasty comment online or a passive-aggressive email at work. Someone is offering you a gift of their anger or their negativity. You have complete power to just decline it. It's not about pretending it didn't happen. It's about choosing not to let their negativity become your problem. Okay, so these are some seriously powerful ideas, right? But how do we turn them from interesting concepts into an actual system we can use every day? Let's see how this all builds into a daily blueprint for focused, sustainable work. The core philosophy behind the whole thing is called the middle way, and the source material uses this brilliant analogy of tuning a lute. See, if the strings are too tight, they snap. That's burnout. But if they're too loose, they don't make any sound at all. That's stagnation. The goal is to be perfectly tuned for high performance, to make beautiful music. So this blueprint breaks the day down into 5 phases, and each one is based on one of these parables. It starts in the morning with the empty cup, just a quiet moment to begin with a blank slate. Then, when you start work, you use the poisoned arrow rule to just act on your top priority. Midday, you check your lute strings with a quick reset. In the afternoon, touching the earth helps you notice your feelings without letting them take over. And at the end of the day, leaving the raft is a shutdown ritual so you can truly leave work behind. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That whole system, it looks like a lot. And trying to do it all at once is like tightening those lute strings way too much. So the key is to start small. You need an easy on-ramp. And here's the secret sauce. It's not about willpower. It's about micro habits. Instead of trying to force yourself with willpower, which we all know runs out, you make the new habit so tiny, so ridiculously small, that it's basically impossible to fail. It's a tiny action that, when you do it over and over, actually rewires your brain. And the best way to make these stick is with a technique called habit stacking. You don't create a whole new routine from scratch. You just piggyback the tiny new habit onto something you already do without thinking. After my alarm goes off, after I sit down at my desk, after a meeting. It's simple, it's effective, and it takes almost no mental energy. All right, let's bring this all home and get really practical. The final step is to actually design your environment to make these habits effortless. This isn't about trying harder. It's about making it easier to do the right thing. Here is a dead simple, friction-free way to win your morning back. The night before, you put your phone on airplane mode. That's it. You create a physical buffer. The world can't rush in until you've had a moment and a glass of water all to yourself. And what about that big, scary project you've been putting off? Here's the play for that. Committing to a huge task is intimidating, but committing to just 10 minutes? Your brain can handle that. And the secret is, once you start, once that poison of procrastination is gone, you'll almost always just keep going. Look, it really all boils down to these simple little mantras. Think of this as your cheat sheet for a better day. Morning, water before Wi-Fi. Work, post-it before portal. And evening, a physical shutdown ritual before you try to sleep. And this really is the ultimate takeaway. Stop trying to rely on willpower. It's a losing battle. Start relying on your environment. By setting up these simple physical triggers, you make the good decisions the path of least resistance. So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. What's your anchor object? What physical thing in your environment can you use to anchor one of these new habits? This is what takes the idea from just something you heard to something you actually do. In fact, you know what? Let's make it real. Here is your first immediate step. Tonight, before you go to sleep, do these 3 things. Put a glass by your bed. Put a Post-it and a pen right on your closed laptop. And pick a spot where you'll stand to take those deep breaths. By preparing your environment right now, you're making tomorrow's success pretty much inevitable.